Good afternoon, everybody. RT here with Hxro Labs, episode 67. Hxro Labs live on this beautiful Friday afternoon on a day where a Minution is rumoredly following up on his rumor to lock down the old self-custody wallets. The Block Crypto coming out today saying U.S. Treasury said to weigh in new crypto transaction reporting rule aimed at self-hosted wallets as early as today. And I have no doubt in my mind, because crypto is crypto, markets are markets, that if any regulations are placed, whether or not they're that detrimental, whether or not they will shift the higher time frame trend, they will cause a ripple in the market. And I would expect that ripple in this case, given that we're up $3,000 this week, and given that they are sort of like perceived as not great, that might be a pullback. And so the question really that I want to know as a trader, as an investor, is that a pullback for buying? The survey says usually yes, when you're in a strong daily uptrend. But that's neither here nor there. I'm mostly just interested in seeing what it is. And it's like the headline sounds, like this is going to happen. But then when you actually read through the article, we can pull it up today, share the link if you want to read it. Basically, it just says like all kinds of wishy-washy stuff. Perhaps the language is to be decided, and there will be a dialogue, and people will have input. Some in the U.S. Lawmakers don't want it to be too crippling. It's being presented as this thing where Minution's like, I hate crypto and will lock you down. But I don't know that that's the case. So if you think...
I would stifle innovation pretty hard, considering other countries are ramping up Bitcoin development and making it easier. That would definitely displace the U.S. potential leadership in this, which the majority of the volume is coming from the U.S. right now. So it would hurt, but at the same time, the KYC guys love this stuff. Like I don't think it's going to affect inflows as much. To be honest, like institutions want more KYC, they want more regulation, clarity, better custody solutions, all that stuff. So I think we're just going to go through like a great washing period in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of money out there, and it's being managed by funds and family offices, whatever you want to call it, and they can't even participate in things that are unregulated. They just can't. They manage so much money, and then there's all these rules. And so in some ways, the floodgates opening really has to do with more of this regulatory stuff, and you just got to pick the side of which I hate this, I like this, but at the end of the day, it just is going to be what it is going to be. And there are different groups within government that have different interests, right? Some are like, yeah, we got to get the tax. Others are like, we want to keep innovation strong. Others are like, we got to regulate and prevent any money laundering. And so they're all going to get together and fight it out, and we'll find hopefully some sense in the end that will balance the best of all parts. So that's sort of at the top of my list today for things to focus on. Some people I know are very risk off right now, just while that kind of shakes out through Monday, perhaps. It says as early as today, but it could come on Monday, could come next week. Just, another announcement about that and how how much hyperbole we're going to see around it. So, some traders I know are fairly flat. I am kind of where I've been in general, spot long everything. And at the moment, not really in any leverage positions. Let's take a look at the chat. We got Nathan Wissing. How are you doing? Good to see you. And Scott and Kuark and the Andimat. Welcome back, guys. Great to have you here on this Friday. We're going to dive into the charts today. Nick's got some pretty clean looks at the higher time frames that I want to get a look at. A lot of my ranges, a lot of my fib zones, a lot of my consolidations that I've had up, and just been inking and following along for the last few weeks are all broken now. Bitcoin breakout, ETH breakout, kind of broke through all the ranges I've been trading and looking at. So I'm sort of in the midst of a reset, a lot of my chart templates as I go to sort of take a look at what I'm looking at above. The one thing I will say is that on my zoom out, the first one I set up is the zoom out ETH chart that I set up with you guys here on Monday. And that just looks so good. We're at, again, diagonal right now, which explains perhaps from that point of view why we stopped here and why we're just hanging out. But the next horizontal on that is up at like $750 ETH. So it's a $100 move from here. Pretty exciting stuff. And I don't know that I see any major reason why we shouldn't move ahead to that in the next few weeks. from a TA perspective. But there's some other stuff cooking up. I think there's like for the astrologists out there, a big Jupiter Saturn cross event on the 21st, which is
3 days.
3 days. So again, a lot of traders looking at that. And I guess I'm not an astrologist. Don't know how much I believe in all that. Certainly don't trade directly off of it. But when it's this massive event that a lot of people are looking at, maybe it's a thing just because they say it's a thing. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure to see how like the weekend price action shakes out once the big boys go home for the weekend and it's just pure 24/7 online crypto without the CME. So we'll see how that shakes out and what Monday looks like. I'm just excited. I mean, I'm sitting here eating popcorn most of the week. If you're in altcoins, if you're buried in altcoins and you are staring at social media this week and you're just beating yourself up because everyone's excited and it's such a massive day and your altcoin's not going up, I feel you. I've been there. And all I would say is keep your head up, learn from this moment, and try not to make too many irrational or emotional decisions. And let's see if we can find you some levels. If you want to put a chart request on the chart, and we will see if we can pull out some reasonable ideas for those of you who are in positions that you don't want to be, or if you're looking for positions and on a chart that I love this coin, I want to know how I can gain exposure to it. I'll see if I can find you some levels today with Nick, and we'll just work through that. What I will tell you is Bitcoin breaking out to the highs is bullish for everything. Maybe not on day one, certainly not this week with a lot of altcoins getting wrecked versus Bitcoin, which is totally normal. That's not a new thing. But the dawn is often, the dark is often darkest, but the night is darkest before the dawn. So, I still remember very distinctly right before the biggest blow off top crypto has ever seen on December 7th, 2017, when Ethereum versus Bitcoin absolutely parabolically dumped. Just as Bitcoin was going into its parabolic top, that was the best buying opportunity for altcoins in the history of altcoins. And over the 7 or 8 weeks that followed, they went up hundreds and in many cases thousands of percent over a 4-week period, and that ended up marking the top of the market. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I will just tell you this, that before the largest pumps I've ever seen in my life, altcoins did this. So just keep that in mind. And again, who knows what's going to happen this time. But when they do this parabolic down move, that does not mean they're dead. It does not mean they're going away. And I would recommend, as a general rule, if you're bullish on something, be bullish on it whether or not the price is going up or down on any one particular day. Don't change your tune because of a 5 or 10% drop. That is often how you get shaken out of a good position. If you're pretty sure you're in a good position, I would say stick to your guns.
Yeah, ETH BTC could be setting up just a giant inverted head and shoulders.
Yeah, that's actually one that I'm watching very closely. Why don't we get over the charts here? We've got a few requests here in. I agree. Yeah, Memes on Wheels says, thing is, some of the giga-rich whales believe in stuff, and that is obviously a reference to astrology, which I would assume, yep, and I agree. So we're going to take a look at CFI, Algo, XVG, Tomo. I've got some charts on all those, actually, and Ren. And one of the fun things I like after these big moves is to actually go look at the charts the way I had them drawn before and see, how many levels did they break through, whatever. So we'll pull those up a little later towards the end of the show. What do you got for us today, Nick? Obviously, I need to know what the friggin' inflows are on your crypto quant subscription.
They're actually pretty high
Uh-oh.
right now. But this is natural. Like, this is Bitcoin's going to get accumulated vertically, horizontally, and downwards. So this is just people, prices are at all-time highs. Of course, people are going to take some profits, right? So that's why we're probably going to see ranging volatility. And this is kind of reflected in these charts. Like, all inflows and outflows and like any of this on-chain data, it's going to give you much more actionable information than indicators, which are just, usually averages of a time period. So that's lagging. It can still obviously be valuable, helping you with momentum and stuff, but this stuff is real-time action, and that's why we put such a high importance on it. So yeah, that's kind of what we're expecting, higher volatility. But like you said, I think ETH could definitely drive higher. That 720 zone is just so good on the 3-day and the weekly and stuff like that. And we were consolidating here for such a long time, like over a month. And
yeah, there's a lot of energy built up there.
Exactly. So, and it's very easy invalidations on these moves at these points. Like this thing has just been following Wyckoff to pretty much the T, right? Breakout, retest, breakout, retest. So, all we really need to hold at this point, and like you don't even need fancy charting stuff for this. It's really just as simple as that. Like I would probably ignore that way, but as long as we're holding above this range, like 615, it's going to look pretty strong. Anything below that, then you'd be expecting a retest down to like 580 and stuff. But definitely trend bull. Why fight it?
Beautiful. And what are you seeing on the Dixie? Because that's at a fairly high time frame kind of pivot area, and that's actually
true.
one thing that's got me thinking like, oh shit, I wonder if the stars are aligning here, and we do need a little cool down if the Dixie decides to rally into the new year with the end.
Well, the great part about it right now is that this market has been following market structure so well. Look at that throwback up here at 12.1. Same thing. So now any type of move, target's definitely going to be around this like 11.89 region. If I would, last time we had this type of move, from here to here, rejection and very swift sell-off. So if we would see something very similar, the interesting thing, like everybody has, the 5-year, 10-year interest rate expectations, they're rising. They're actually going pretty vertical right now, just above 2.5%, well, almost 2.5%.
What does that mean?
That people are expecting inflation over the next 5-10 years, whatever time period is measuring. Which makes sense if the Fed were to continue the type of QE that we've been seeing. But in Powell's latest statements earlier in the week, he was saying that it's going to be more like they're going to try and slow things down a little bit and not just blanket QE everything, which makes sense because you don't want things to go too crazy. Like inflation is one of those things where if it just ramps, it's tough to put the bottle back on. So they got to be careful on that. But in terms of like what market structure could do here, if you see something like this, lower highs like that, I think that would be enough technical momentum to drive this down. But I do think we're going to see other currencies devaluing as well. So that, this could actually drive USD strengths. I don't know. There's so many interesting things going on in the macro right now. Like obviously massive increase in money supply. You would expect this to go down, but at the same time, there's massive deflation in the economies as well. Like the money's losing velocity, right? So it's not, especially like the local guys, the small towns are going to get pummeled the worst than they are, like bankruptcies at a state level, cities, like small businesses, sky high. So, and like a lot of this stuff, again, it's all getting subsidized, which potentially could be coming to an end if Congress or even other governments don't act to extend it. It really could just become a welfare state for the time being until they try. I don't know how they restart the economy. It'll be interesting. It's all just a game of like different incentive mechanisms and trying to change consumer spending behavior. But latest consumer spending behavior month on month ticked negative. So clearly the QE isn't having the desired effect besides causing inflation in asset prices. Because at the end of the day, if your consumers aren't spending, then your economy growth is going to be pretty fucking shit. Because there's huge there's trickle down. There's trickle down economics on that one. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say to somebody who says that the sort of coronavirus stuff with the vaccine coming is maybe going to be a thing of the past? And so as that kind of wears off, we might see a surge in things like housing and spending and all that.
Yeah, like it could totally happen. I think it's all going to depend on what type of restrictions and how long they're kept in place, and just monitoring, consumer behavior. I guess in the next U.S. stimulus package, there's going to be like $600 or something. So let's see if that goes straight to savings, paying down debt, or if people are going to go out there and actually buy goods. It's possible, right? Theoretically, it could be tracked very easily at this point. Just monitoring the inflows to the exchanges, and all that stuff's going to be KYC'd, right? So we're actually exchanges will have very accurate data, and probably like the IRS and other government agencies will have very accurate data on the rate of hyper Bitcoinization, which I think is actually pretty cool. From the data nerd side of things, obviously terrible for privacy and the sovereign individual, but interesting that they'll have actual super solid data on that. basically just measuring the outflow from US dollar into Bitcoin, right? Monitored through the exchanges. So, and that's why they wanted to put a KYC on everything, right? Because they can then track everything, or at least they'll track the majority of it.
Oh my God. I just found something fascinating about Bitcoin dominance. I'm going to share that in a sec. Jim Reardon just finished shoveling snow. So I guess he is not in the southern part of the United States. So glad to have you back inside for this. HAKKA looking quite strong. I'm going to take a look at that. According to Runeberg, it is looking good. I looked at the chart recently, like earlier this week. It did look quite delightful. And yeah, that's it for the chats. To me on my mind, ball heroes. Yes. So actually, shout out to the Hero platform. The Tixwix pair for Uni went live today, which is exciting. And just one more product on there that I can go speculate on with my little options. So I'm going to go check that out a little later today. Haven't had a chance this morning. Been a busy day. Why don't you fly through some of the more legacy stuff? It looks like you got gold on your chart, and then let's dive balls deep into crypto, because I've got a lot I want to look at.
Gold will be a lot. Actually, we'll take a look at S&P too, because it's doing some interesting things. But again, we've been waiting for this shit to hit down here for a while. Sure enough, we actually just cleared over this new bearish throwback. Like generally, if we see the fundamentals and data that we're seeing right now, whether you believe Bitcoin will, steal all of gold's market cap or not, there's still a lot of traditional investors and central banks and governments who are piling into gold. So, if this breaks, this will be the last point of resistance, really, like 1920, 1940. If that goes, like gold is going to rally big time. And that's your stop loss is going to be right below this level here. But this is insanely bullish. I think any pullback to 1850, if you see positive price action around there, it's going to be a great buy. And then confirmation, like I said, over 1945, and this thing will run hard. Especially if we see other countries starting to devalue and debase their currencies as well. I think it's going to be some crazy times, and it's going to be good for both Bitcoin and gold. But if we know QE is going to be slowing down, that could mean a dip in equities. We've been operating under the premise since March that QE is the values isn't going to go to where people think it's going to go to assets. Into equities. Big tech has taken over at this point. And but if we do see a slowdown of that, net inflows, inflows versus outflows is what it really comes down to at the end of the day. And I think we could possibly be looking for a retrace on this stuff as well. Like obviously super long-term bullish, but could definitely see some maybe entries. I think testing that 3,600 level probably going to be pretty critical. And if we are, I'd say if we're losing 3,600, 3,500, there's probably going to be a short-term shift in the market. But yeah, definitely interested to see what happens. It's the administration's running down. They only got a month and a half to push shit through. And I expect we'll see a flurry of announcements and, last-minute initiatives. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. Could see a reversal, which I think, could cause Bitcoin to cool off. At the same time, followers of dollar milkshake theory, when things are at the worst, all gold, Bitcoin, US dollar, all pumping together. And I think Bitcoin has a much stronger narrative than any time in its history in terms of being perceived more as a safe haven, store of value for the rich. That's its main use case that drives capital into this thing. So yeah, good stuff. Number go up as long as inflows outpace outflows. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I have a really hard time considering selling any Bitcoin at these levels, even though they're really high and I've made some money and I want to hold on to those gains, especially if we're going to see any kind of midterm pivot and cool down and shakeout. I get all that, but I have a really hard time ignoring the fundamental narratives, as you say, and the inflows, outflows, the supply demand. It's just so bloody strong. Yeah. And so, that's been my struggle as far as like how I want to play this, if I even care, if I'm willing to just ride it out, because I know in 3 to 5 years, the probability of it being insanely expensive to buy Bitcoin is high. So mostly in that sense, I'm just sticking to smaller ranges, 1 and 4 hour ranges, altcoins, getting into the DeFi, the farming, the algorithmic stablecoin stuff in the last couple of weeks, and just kind of sitting and enjoying my spot positions, not getting too sweaty with the leverage. That's sort of been my approach lately. As much as I like to say I like lev longed like the 19,500 region, I did not. But I spot longed with what I had left in Tether, and that's been fun. Reardon asked about the algo stables today, and the good news is we actually got a video on that. I think one of our previous guests, oh hey Maddie, has put together a really decent explanation on the dollar protocol. It's about 20 minutes long. It's on his YouTube. I don't know that it's public yet. So if that goes public, or I should say when, because he obviously made it for that reason, we'll be sure to put that up either on my personal Twitter or through the Hxro Labs. Haven't decided yet. I'll have to watch it and make sure it's not too crazy before I go.
I watched it. It's pretty solid.
I skimmed it earlier.
Yeah, it's a good, like obviously, it's a good unbiased interview. It's just an overview of the senior systems and how dollar protocol can be leveraged into a multi-asset ecosystem, which I think is a big differentiator.
Yeah, and then even I think you got into the borrowing lending. So I'll be sure to put your eyes on that, Jim, because I know you're keen to get into that. And it is a big discussion. I mean, we've been involved in this thing now for like 3 weeks. Feels like 2 years. The way that how many hours I've spent discussing it and going over the mechanisms and Xbond, and do I hold Xbond? Do I mint Xbond? Do I redeem it? Do I buy share? Do I LP the ETHUSD pool? Like, there's so many ways to capture alpha with that protocol. And it is a very large discussion. What I will do is pull up some TA on it real quick. So let's get a quick look. Oh, look at that. I'm going to have to switch over here. It looks like my tab closed, but let's go take a look at share, because that's the big one that I'm focused on. It did break down from a pretty big pattern today. So, keeping your eyes on this one, as you can see, pretty standard stuff to this point. I mean, huge breakout. And I was a little concerned about, this sort of Elliott wave cycle, which I don't know all the measurements for, but it's just generally takes the same shape, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, and then the C is the sort of boring ass long consolidation. And in this case, I mean, long looks like it could be about 2-3 weeks. And so, I was holding out hope that perhaps this kind of structure, which we just poked above last night. Now, I will say this, which is interesting, and I love about Uniswap, is that you can actually watch wallets, and there was a massive wallet selling like 10,000 share at a time for the last basically week and a half. And they're down to their last 300,000. I think they had like over 1 million, like 1.5 million. So we've been watching that wallet pretty closely, because they're obviously dead set on exiting their position, which is like fair enough. I think they accumulated it down here. They're trading it back off here. They're distributing. And a lot of these bigger red candles are that wallet. And so it's interesting, because you're like, okay, so is this entire sell pressure generated by one person who's almost out? And then what happens? So who knows? Because I don't have a whole lot of data trading like that. But I will tell you this. Most of this sell pressure, every time it kind of tops and gets pushed back down, and then he stops, and then it gets pushed back down, and he stops, and it pushes. Each one of those has been like 80% of this wallet. So that's just something to keep note of. What I will say is we've broken down from this triangle, and once that breaks, you get a pretty solid candle, because it's a technical level. So traders and people who watch TA will be like, oh shit, we broke down. Okay, all selling. I would expect, obviously, this level is my first, second, and third. It's not about saying like we're going 15 cents, but these are just levels where I'm like, oh, that would be an interesting place to look for a bounce. It worked really well here, and I expect it will again if we get down there. So this is what I'm looking at on share. And it should be noted that the USD pair, the one that really causes the rebase, the engine, has actually just reached a level that would kick it back into a neutral rebase. So something to know about this coin. It only pays rewards or seigniorage or positive rebase if the TWAP, 12-hour TWAP, is above 105. So right now it is, because the 12-hour TWAP has not dropped down here yet, but it will catch up eventually. And so there was a positive rebase today. The rewards from that were sold. We are back down into neutral rebase territory, which I'd like to mark on the chart. It's basically 105 and 95. So anytime price TWAP is in this tiny little range, nothing happens. If it goes below, the X-bond ratio will reset to 1-to-1, making X-bonds super cheap again. And it will also cause negative rebase, or what's called debasing. So any USD sitting in your wallet will get sliced down little bit by little bit. The incentive then is to bond it, and that will help you avoid those negative retraces. So anyway, since this V2 really got into this first big rally, this is the first time we're revisiting this. So it's going to be interesting to watch how the market reacts. My impression is that there will be a lot of buy pressure below the 95-cent level as people race to scoop up cheap dollars and put them in X bonds and then just kind of wait it out. Because theoretically, those X bonds should someday always end up back at $1. So under $1 becomes a bit of a bargain. How below we get, that's going to be the question. I'm very interested to watch. There's a number of these coming up. And I got to say, it kind of all started with empty set dollar, ESD. Now we've got DSD, we've got DFD, slightly different one, a little more of a DeFi play here. But, I'm fascinated by this stuff. And this is the only one that I've really done a deep dive. So it's the only one I can really speak to today. But that's what we're watching on Share Protocol or Dollar Protocol. So other than that, I want to take a look at AXS because this is one we've been watching on our Twitter. It is a coin picker's market. It is a very, it's not alt season in the sense that everything's going to pump together, at least not yet. But this one has been looking pretty strong. It's, they got a partnership with Binance. They got listed on Binance. They had the big pump through this pump chaser zone. And once this confirmed, I saw that. I was like, this just reminds me of Swipe, where SXP, they had the big first leg and then it kind of chilled and then had a big second leg and it just kind of grew. And by the time everyone was convinced they needed to buy some, it just topped and it's been squeezing people ever since. So I really like AXS, or I should say I liked it as a long, coming out of this, coming back into here. Although on the 10th, I distinctly recall there was a lot of volatility in Bitcoin and ETH. So most people were sitting there probably not staring at buy the dip scenarios, but that's exactly what they got here. And now we've broken above this key level. And you can see just beautiful price action as we break up above it, come back in, resting on what really should be painted green as support, and have now continued to move up. So don't tell me all coins are bearish. Okay, there's definitely a lot versus Bitcoin that are taking hits. But if you trade versus USD, there are some gems out there, and it's just a time to be really selective and not be necessarily blindly loading every dip, because, you can do that and you might get lucky. But consistently profitable traders over time, you got to come with a better strategy than punting random, amounts of Bitcoin into big dirty dips. So I guess the last thing I want to say on that for this rant is a quick look at Bitcoin dominance. And with this rising wedge I've been watching, and was obviously hoping that we would tab this level and then break down and that would be it. But you get this huge squeeze up. And so we are into a risk-off window where I'm just, I'm not rushing to buy this yet. As far as the trend goes, we didn't get the breakdown we wanted. But I want to unpack this a little bit because I noticed something when Nick was talking from back when I mentioned December 7th, 2017, and I'll just show you like a little comparison there. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's give ourselves a little visual here. As far as this big dump goes, where price action is concerned, a squeeze back up into the short reload zone is actually acceptable. So I don't know what's going to happen from here, but I tell you this, there is risk reward to be betting on this being the top of this move. And if it isn't, well, you're pretty close to an invalidation level. I wouldn't really want to see it go above there. But if it is, then, you could argue that this is the bottom for some altcoins. Now, I don't think that. Maybe I'm disbelief, too hard to believe, but for what it is, there's a squeeze happening here on altcoins, and you can see that on things like ETH BTC, and go figure, ETH BTC sitting in that reload zone, a place where it is never easy to buy, but according to my trade plan is often a place where I want to buy. So if this is sitting in the reload zone for the long side, and this is sitting in the reload zone for the short side, then I want to start thinking seriously about hunting altcoin setups. It may take a few days to come in, but
what your pattern you were looking at there with that bottom, like that very rounded bottom, could be a cup and handle.
Which one's that?
Back on your dominance chart there.
Oh, the dominance chart? Let's go take a look. Oh God, yeah.
You can see
a big dip and then a little handle.
Yeah, I guess that one too. But also just like the dip that we've had here since your last peak. made the bottom, and then where we are now, that
Oh.
very, very handle. Look at that. You could see a handle come back to that 64.5, complete the narrative. It'd be an amazing setup.
You mean for essentially shorting dominance and longing altcoins, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin is going to see a retrace off of US dollar increase. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah,
noting
that's a
that
good point.
the mempool is also ticking up on BTC, which is definitely to be expected. Sitting there at 36.6. So it's not, it's not going, absolutely crazy, but it is starting to move up a little bit. So you definitely expect your transactions to get more expensive, and maybe even waiting a little bit longer if you get stuck without increasing your fee.
Sorry, I zoned out there because I got so distracted by DS's comment. He said, holding X bond, never redeeming, hopium. And I just want to echo your sentiment by saying, yes, I agree. I have been accumulating US dollars, not redeeming them for X bond, while redeeming my X bond and not reminting in anticipation of a visit to negative rebase. Because if that does that, it'll reset the X bond ratio 1-to-1, which means for every USD I have, I can get one X bond. It's going to water down the existing X bond holders, which sucks. I actually still have some because you can't redeem it all at once. And but yeah, dude, me and a lot of people I know are looking to load the X bond cannon as soon as it's below. And I think that that's the strategy. So how the hell does it stay below 95 cents very long? I don't know. We'll find out. It's going to be fascinating. It's a social experiment. But here's what I want to look at. So this is the dominance zoomed out, right? So you can see it obviously looks like a big mess because we're going to zoom out now. And the reason I'm looking over here is because this is December 7th, 2017. And as I talked about it earlier, and then Nick had the screen, and I thought, I'm going to go look at what it did there. And like this was, and again, can't give any guarantees about what we're doing right now, but this was like the buying of the dip to buy back in December 2017. And, looking at the ETH chart, where was it? Way back. This is whack right before the altcoins went absolutely bonkers. It was right here, right? So think about if you were holding altcoins in 2017, because a lot of people that weren't around, they like to say like, oh, 2017 was so easy. What a crazy bull market, because you just hear about the winning stories, right? But from July 2017 until December 17th, I mean, ETH BTC was just shitting the bed. I mean, we had some little rallies that I remember in October, late November. And then it got here, and then it just failed. And on the chart, it looks kind of peaceful. You're like, oh yeah, a little pullback. But let me tell you what it was like to live through that. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it's been 10 days of all your altcoins bleeding out while Bitcoin's mooning, and everyone on Twitter is talking about how rich they are because of Bitcoin and how rich they're going to be. Bitcoin just cracked 20K. Oh my God. And on the last 2 days of the Bitcoin as it headed into the highs, absolute fucking savage bloodbath across all coins, across ETH BTC. And this is the part where you start regretting your life choices. And you start thinking, I should really be on the Bitcoin train. This thing's going to the moon. Everyone makes me feel dumb. My bags suck. I've lost, so much Bitcoin value. And then on these 2 days is where people decide to make decisions. Right? They're like, oh, I definitely need out. This is happening. And look what that did. That marked the bottom. And over the next 5 weeks, ETH and every other altcoin absolutely melted everybody's face all over the market. And, I can imagine a lot of people who sold here got back in at some point. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there for perspective, because this is what it looked like on dominance. And then it was like a rug pull, and altcoins just went insane. Are we going to see that this time? I don't know, but just don't rule it out. Don't assume that this is the time to be adding all your altcoins back into Bitcoin and giving up on something. So I guess that brings me to like risk management. Have a thesis for your trade before you get into it, and have a clear invalidation level before you get into it. And I guess for me, that invalidation level would be, down here. If I was trying to get long on Ethereum versus Bitcoin, I would have a level picked out. In this case, it might even be this wick right here. If I want to start getting long into this reload zone, I don't really want to see it go below this wick or whatever. But whatever level I pick, that's the one. And until that level hits, I don't change my plan. So and because if you act that way in the market, you can measure your risk before you get in, and so you don't get wrecked because you know exactly how much you're going to lose, and then when you lose it, you just eat shit and you write it down and you track it and you move on. So for those of you who are in pain with your altcoins, maybe you don't have invalidation levels, maybe you're well beyond any reasonable invalidation level, but it's never too late to just kind of circle back, start thinking about how you can plan, so that during this kind of move, you're not sweating and then selling on the final capitulation bottom if that ends up being. Because most
price could retreat up to 9% on that pair and still be bullish.
Yeah. No, I mean this is Cosmos versus Bitcoin. You know, obviously not performing well because Bitcoin is the star right now. But you know, and here's my issue, is that I want to be like, you know, hey, this is getting into a spot where like, but I don't want to just buy sharp down moves, right? It's what we call catching daggers. I've done that before. And then, you know, and then what, Bitcoin just keeps going and I'm like, oh, well, I'm stupid. I lost money on it. I don't even have an invalidation. So, and I tell you guys this stuff all the time. What I want to do is wait for this bottom to come in, wherever it is, let the bounce come. And then I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to draw up my little reload zone. And whatever that asset is should come back down, test the lows, make a higher low, and then go about its merry way. And by doing that, I allow myself an entry with a tight invalidation. I have some structure to work with. So on days like today, where we're just seeing like these mega nuke candles down this week, I just don't have anything to do, right? What I want to do is I want to shortlist the coins that I am interested in. So let's say I am interested in Atom, which to be honest, I kind of am. And I'm going to wait until it does just that. So in this case, you know, it's come in, hit this low, bounces up. I might try to get a higher low or something like that. But you know, these kind of reversals on these long downtrends, they don't take 20 minutes or an hour or 10 hours. They take days, sometimes weeks. So unfortunately, I'm not rushing in. I've got heavy Bitcoin, heavy Ethereum, you know, which goes back to that chart that I've been watching for a while, right? This has been the front and center of all my analysis for weeks, which was, if we go back above here, I am back to Bitcoin, I'm back to ETH. And that's why. Because crazy things happen above that level. So I hope this all makes sense to you guys. I'm just trying to, you know, I get it. I want to sit here and cheer and be like, rah, 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 Bitcoin's a bull. It's going crazy. We're all making money. But I also understand the reality that not everyone watching this is in the right position that they want to be in, or necessarily optimal position. So I'm trying to just make maybe a teaching moment where we can all learn from it. And like I said, market's not going anywhere, guys. You know, these cycles, these moves, these things, they're going to come again. And all you can do is plan for the next one.
On to the next one. But you're
complete. Right. What are you seeing right now, Nick?
Yeah, like the big thing I want to echo what you said is that those BTC pairs, they get nuked, but they reverse very sharply. And yeah, I agree. We should be waiting for those nukes. There's some great levels, et cetera, et cetera. But the USD pairs, you know, kind of ranging right now. Just kind of coming off these resistance levels. I'm looking at a uni play. Like I think breaking this resistance level here, like 4025, is going to be pretty significant for this entire market, and I think it's going to be the catalyst for. I've been waiting for this range expansion this entire time, and we've kind of just been stuck between support and resistance, right? Technically, lower lows, lower highs, but obviously, you know, a little inverted head and shoulders played out here around the resistance. Did take that high, so that's why I was kind of interested in this, waiting to see if we can, you know, hold this support level down there at 3.5. But I do think we can go back there and test it. It's kind of going to be the next pivot level. If, you know, is it going to confirm bull at 3.5, and we'll make a run at these highs up here, up to 4.4, or are the USD markets about to roll over? Because we're going to see a bit in the USD. So it's definitely in a no trade zone at the moment, unless you did catch this short up here. But the point is that they're going to be coming some big pivot points that are going to activate some big range expansion trades, which is what, you know, that's where you really make the gains. Sushi Swap just, you know, continues to be strong, right? Moves holding above all resistance levels, just a constant staircase here, right? Just flipping these resistances to support. No real concern here. Upside targets, same thing, 3.5, 3.6. And as long as these levels continue to flip, at 2.3, sorry, 2.4, it's bull. It's in a little range right now, but the trend is definitely up. Same thing with YFI. It's close to confirming a trade. I'd say if we're closing above this 28.7, going to be good to retest these highs here. So I'm kind of waiting on that. It's just a series of higher lows here. So unless we see a break below that 22K, nice support level there as well. This thing is just in a range but bullish. And I think that is basically the majority of like large DeFi products with network effects right now. So yeah, there's a lot of good opportunities setting up. And I think a very important chart that everybody should be following is going to be GBTC, right? Because they're essentially one of the largest proxies for institutional buying in space. So probably a pretty good idea to keep an eye on what's going on there in terms of their inflows versus outflows. Look at that volume, new high on this weekly on this break. So clearly very strong momentum on this still.
Yeah, that chart just looks ridiculous. And
right?
I love that it hasn't even hit its all-time high.
Yeah, GBTC is a monster.
Pac-Man just eating it all up. Now, okay, yeah, keep going. You got
like the biggest thing opportunity that I see, and like this is kind of like a proxy for my BTC biases, the charts that is that this still is an unfilled level, right? We always say like go into the springs of moves, and this is a 3-day chart, so there's some good weight behind it, right? This is the real spring of this move down here, right? A 0.2536. If we come down here and see a strong bounce off here, that's going to be the bottom confirmation for me at least. I would definitely be expecting a rally back up to the 3 point, up to look at the confluence, right? It's a 3-day level, it's a weekly level, 0.03 to 0.031. That'd be a fantastic trade, and we can see what it does from there. But definitely expecting a strong bounce. There's also a huge volume profile in here, like just so many areas of confluence on this one. Plus, we know that Ethereum is going to be getting futures again, well, for the first time.
February 8th.
Yeah, so that's just a huge sign of further institutionalization of the asset class. Has Bitcoin taught us anything? If it's one thing, let it be that money coming into to buy is a good thing. Pretty fucking obvious statement, right? But I think a lot of people got caught underexposed or on the short side of it. So don't make the same mistake twice with Ethereum. So it's really just a matter of what, and the premiums on those things are even more insane. We should pull up the ETH.
Well, and just like when I tell crypto guys about stocks and I get 0 likes on Twitter and it's all the even if it's blockchain stocks, they're just like, I don't know where to buy that shit. Like, what do I look like, a stock trader to you? In a very similar vein, you could say that about the opposite. There's a lot of traditional investors, traders, desks that, they're like, oh yeah, go get some Ethereum. They're like, where do I even buy that? What, Binance? This weird, vaguely located thing that I'm going to go put millions of dollars on? Not happening. But you start launching that at the CME and you give them the bull case then, and they can stay within their own ballpark and play with it. They'll come.
Yeah, things look a lot more appealing going through those type of ramps.
Yeah. Trusted sources for data and,
And I think Ethereum can become a much more censorship resistant layer as well, just because the layer 2 is so robust with different things being built on top of it. So it's super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to take a look at some of the, okay, look, I put out a thesis yesterday, or not even a thesis, just like a comment on Twitter about like, now more than ever, I think it's going to be really important to be selective with the coins, altcoins that you're speculating on, because we're seeing separation and like greater separation. And as the space matures, much like the stock market, not all stocks go up and down at the same time. I mostly play around in the junior stock market, and those things are bottomed out, and S&P dumps and they'll still pump 20x because they're 2-cent stocks. Like, there is space within the stock market for uncorrelated assets and sectors. And I think the more and more that crypto matures, we're going to start to see that. And we're already starting to see it with things like Uniswap, where the Uniswap pairs are not nearly as reactive to Bitcoin moves as the pairs on Binance, for example, that trade against Bitcoin. And that makes sense because the same market makers and algorithms that are running on Binance, they are probably behind each pair. So, you look at it like, oh, there was a coordinated dump on alts today. Well, it's like, yeah, because they have algorithms that are running that say, like, Bitcoin value going up, put me back into Bitcoin. And so it's auto deleverage from their altcoins, whatever. Is it planned? Is it designed to shake you out? Whatever. It could be. I would speculate that for a good amount of it, it is. And like we always say, a lot of altcoins use case is just to accumulate more Bitcoin,
Mhm.
right? So they create these cycles. They put in a bottom, they accumulate a fuckload of it, then they ramp it up. They get the public very excited. They offload it to them at these highs. Then they wash the public out and let them kind of dump it. They don't put any buy support in. And then when it gets into a nice little bottom area, they accumulate it and they rinse and repeat, and they're accumulating Bitcoin. That is just the age-old trick. And so in that sense, you got to be very selective with these. Now, we did a scan almost 3 weeks ago now where I just went through and I said, look, I don't want any altcoins that are making new lows. I only want altcoins that are above the lows and in the reload zone of where they were in the summer. So one example of Wabi, which is actually a coin that I like. I actually like this project. I think, I had this in my mind that it was quite strong and they had some interesting fundamentals. But technically speaking, looks like shit. And it made new lows. And so it was not on my short list. And look what it's done since then, right? Just more new lows. One chain didn't quite make the cut. It's holding up a little better. So these, let's take a look. WRX. Has this been doing anything in the time since it didn't make the shortlist, right? So having those very simple scanning techniques, and if you haven't looked at it, you can go back about 3 weeks. It was a Monday, I want to say, where we did an altcoin scan. Yeah, I did a full altcoin scan of the market. I think it was after the Pierce Crosby episode, I believe. And so, this is why this kind of shit doesn't make the cut, because there was no buying, and now there still isn't. Walton chain, same thing, right? Making new lows. You say, well, all the charts look like that. And I would say, no, they don't. XLM made a nice bounce, looking okay. Certainly coming down right now, but what is it, making new lows, or is it sliding into a
reload zone?
Reload zone, right? XMR, same kind of thing. Much stronger outlook versus Bitcoin. Where is it now? New lows? Nope. Reload zone. XRP, new lows? Nope. Reload zone. And so having a scanning system is going to help you differentiate between which altcoins have underlying bids and which coins are just kind of washing out. Clearly nobody interested, at least not at those levels. And they may go down quite a bit more before the sellers run out and they put in some kind of W. And someday I'm sure they will have their chance if they're not total shit. But for now, there's just too much risk in putting my Satoshis into the market against some other coin, unless that coin is showing serious signs of being the one that's going to survive or, pump, so to speak.
That's why I like using on-chain data at this point. Like, you're a rookie if you're not. That way you can actually see if things are getting accumulated, distributed, right? That's probably your most important edge in fucking scanning for gems, is determining are the networks alive or not.
And you can see it in ZIL. I mean, look at this chart. It's like, tell me all coins are dead. Nope. But they're just not all rallying together. You've got to be selective.
There's an increase in buy volume though.
Well, this is crazy. Actually, I haven't looked at this chart today, but like you can see here, there was like, if you're looking at candle body highs on the daily and you created that trend line and there was a breakout, and 2 weeks ago, a buddy of mine was texting me. He's like, oh, ZIL looks like it's ready to move. Now, Bitcoin breaks to the new highs. Does ZIL dump to new lows? Nope. It's just consolidating. It's chilling. It's very strong. There's something going on with ZIL. You got to ask yourself, why doesn't this one look like the others? What's going on? So you start doing some fundamentals. You look into it. You research it. You find out maybe on the coincal.com that they've got some upcoming event, something that's creating buzz that people are clearly anticipating will cause it to rally. And on a day like today, the daily candle is up. What is it up? Looks like it's up like 7%, 18%. It's an 18% daily candle, right? So people that say, well, TA doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, maybe not every time, and maybe not if you just don't understand it. But weeks ago, I could have told you, fuck this coin. This coin looks like shit. And that exact same time, I could come over here and say, yeah, ZIL looks strong as fuck. And, a couple weeks later, we're seeing, that basic, very professional assessment play out. So, just keep this stuff in mind, guys. Get into your scanning systems. This one doesn't look that strong. It's certainly not making new lows, OX, ZRX. But, be selective, because there is going to be, through all phases, there's probably going to be some real winners. And there's going to be some that just lose and lose and lose. So hopefully, by joining us here, bringing your ideas and sharing what we have, we can all get together and find the best winners for the next year or 2 or 3 or 5.
Yeah, the time to capitalize and put the hours in is definitely now. If there's ever been a time, like the next big rallies as we go through the early majority phase of adoption, it's going to be much larger than what we saw before in terms of overall liquidity, which is probably the most important thing, because then you can actually, your trades, there's zero slippage. Like imagine a liquid alt market. My God.
It's going to be exciting, and I mean, it seems inevitable. It's just a matter of when. And let's take a look here, because I don't want you guys to get the effect or the impression that, like, TA is perfect. RVN was making new lows, so it didn't make my short list. But one of the reasons I often, and I've said this before, where we're really looking for weekly charts, weekly formations, weekly W's, and up here, while everything else was having a rally this summer, it was making lower lows on the weekly, not very strong. That's a very shitty signal that's not at the bottom yet. And after a big long washout through the latter part of the summer, if you're just looking at the daily and you're maybe not patient enough and you're just a little too eager to force this thing into your bullish narrative, you could say, hey, look at that. Buyers starting to step in. Ooh, big buyers stepping in. I'm going to go buy that reload zone. Well, at the very least, you managed risk. You bought it near the retest of those lows. And just the other day, you got stopped out. And on this position, you lost 8%. And that's going to happen. You're not going to be right every time. But you can be even more patient and say, you know what? I'm not going to buy this until I have a very clear signal that there is a weekly W. And that's such a strong signal in crypto. And if you can wait for that, you'll avoid a lot of that kind of pain, like somebody trading RVN my way would have experienced. I did not. I actually did buy some in that reload zone, and then I sold it the next day because I was like, this is dumb. I don't want this one. So I will admit that's why it's on my chart here, because I did actually fuck with RVN last week, and then I thought, this looks like shit.
Bitcoin is coming for this coin.
Yeah, Bitcoin's coming to eat this thing up. And I mean, it's a POW. I'm pretty sure they have some inflation. There was like some hack last year or something where somebody minted like 6 million RVN. So that's clearly still shaking out.
Interesting volume profile on that. Super. You would have thought that would have gone a little bit more at that super hard buy volume, and then Bitcoin was like, well, time to rally over 20.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so hard to know for sure who that is stepping in and why. This kind of buy right here, but clearly there's bulls lurking, and so you could say when this thing does bottom, it should have a pretty decent day. But for now, it's just making new lows every time Bitcoin sneezes. So, the beautiful thing about these markets is that unless they die, they always find a bottom. And so the patience game just becomes so valuable, because wherever it ends up bottoming, even if it's like something like this and it's just an absolute shitcoin down into the 20 sat area, and then it's like, whoa, and then whoa, and then eventually it's up here, and you're like, holy shit, on the weekly, we just put in a base. I mean, why can't we wait for that? What is there a shortage of things we can trade right now that we have to trade this one because it's not optimal at all? Mm-hmm. And when this comes in, you can usually draw it up like a normal thing, and then a few weeks later you get your dip into that, and then that's go time, baby. So preaching patience on the shittier ones, because eventually they will all look pretty good, but a lot of them obviously overvalued based on what people think of them. Theta looks a hell of a lot stronger, doesn't it? Through all the new lows of a lot of these shit coins, what's Theta doing? Just hanging out at the 618 of its former pump rally. So find a way to spot the differences between what buyers are interested in and what they're not interested in. Position yourself with the big money. That's my take.
Strong balance.
Yeah, so that's my take. Now, look, we've got a few requests here as I kind of rant along my ETH BTC thing, because make no mistake about it, guys. I plan to trade the shit out of altcoins with my Bitcoin. But I'm going to be super selective, ideally catching an entire seasonal window. But in lieu of a seasonal window, I'm taking the setups on things that look really strong, because there's like 6,000 coins now. I mean, I can be selective.
Yeah.
Look at best for my babies. So I will do a full scan sometime very soon. My last scan sheet is, kind of all over the map. Tomo's still holding strong, but I don't see a ton of buyer interest down here yet. So I'm not too excited about Tomo yet, although it is in my zone. That to me would be a wait and see. RVN can get the hell out of here. XRP suddenly getting interesting again as it comes back into the reload zone off of big, huge, clearly a breakout, although the flare airdrop has passed. So, or the spark, whatever it was. So that it might be a little wait and see here, but it is in the zone. Sushi looking strong as hell. Let's get it up here. Just came into a level, actually. So I don't know why I had that drawn in there. I think that's a fib extension, but it's there. So, trending up. But like, you see the difference? I'm just going in circles now, but you guys get it, I'm sure. So maybe, John, I don't know if you want to maybe grab all the requests you see in that chat and give us a nice list, and we'll start rapid fire as we come up to the top of the hour here on this fabulous Friday. And if you guys have any other questions, I'm going to look through the chat now.
I'll drop comp.
Yeah, let's do comp. I actually had a leverage comp this week, a little one.
Yeah, I think I had a little bit of a news pump yesterday, but today it has retraced the new lows. So FOMO buys in disbelief.
Shit.
Yeah, it is at a big level here on the daily in terms of resistance. 180. I think if we're closing above 180, so maybe something like this would be a confirmation of a huge rally in comp, in my opinion. If we are closing above here, say we take out this high here or something, right? We'll take that out. And if we're consolidating above here, that's your signal that this market is fully shiftable, and you'd be looking to buy just under 180 or something, 170, with expectations that this thing is going 220, and the next high we are on 260. So yeah, 220, 260, and then wherever this high is, 267 or something. But until you get this market structure, you're sitting right at resistance. So your support nearby is going to be closer to like around 138, and then a tested support, proven support, hard down there. What is that? 120? Yeah.
Beauty. Let's flip over to HAKKA. We are into the speed round here because I see a lot of requests, and why not? There's a lot of volatility in the market, so there's a lot to look at.
Okay, good.
HAKKA just looks great. There's no two ways about it. I can't tell you, the alpha play for HAKKA. I think there's some kind of staking and pooling you can do, and is that better? And capturing those LP gains is the best way to hold your HAKKA. But I will tell you this, from a technical perspective, what you've got is, first of all, a big washout, so huge drop, clear signal of lack of sellers down here. There's just literally nobody selling, so you could say that downtrend is over. Then we have an awakening. We have a nice consolidation. We have a breakout with rising volume. You can see here the volume just keeps getting higher and higher with each new high. And that's what we want to see for a strong trend, to say, well, that's probably not the end of the trend if you're getting more and more volume. And now we've broken through and we're retesting that level. So HAKKA actually looks really good. And you could, on the more bearish bull side, you could say, I want to get real chintzy and start trying to pick up some bids into this zone as we continue up, if you want to minimize your risk and maximize your potential return. But there's also something to be said for buying the retest as we maybe just consolidate along here for a little bit and then continue up. That's kind of the way Nick talks about expansion moves, and I think this one looks ripe for something like that.
Yep, looks good. I got Ren BTC up here. Obviously, still love Ren. It's just getting pummeled because of Bitcoin. It actually made, what is that, yearly lows just about? Yeah, not quite. At least 6-month lows. Complete Eiffel Tower of this insane pump. But it is coming in. If you've held this long, why sell down here? It's kind of in that type
weird time to change your mind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I still haven't bought any. My laziness has actually paid off because
apathy working in the favor of you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming down into this 1127 level, this is just a huge weekly level, right? If we see some demand come in here, this could be a very interesting buy, in my opinion. And again, it's kind of all hinging on the idea that Bitcoin's not just going to keep ripping, because if it does, this is just naturally going to go down, unfortunately. But it is coming into a huge level. Do I want to be opening up a fresh short? No, definitely not. That time has passed. You've had 4 red weeklies. Don't do it here. And the volume just isn't even that great. If you take it, go down to the daily, it's just a slow bleed. It is green on the daily. It's just it's more likely, it's better probability risk reward to be looking for longs down at these levels versus huge shorts, because this thing could easily run back to this breakdown point right up here.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'd be looking at. I mean, I look at it now, I see that weekly, I'm just thinking, well, that's a dagger catch. I'm trying to call bottoms, which there's a trade to be made there with your levels. They tend to bounce pretty well. But like I was explaining before, my strategy with that would probably be a lot lazier. Like, let's let the bottom come in, let's let it bounce, then buy the higher low off of that, which is probably days or so away. I mean, I just don't see that huge market structure breakdown followed by a huge dump just suddenly reversing. It'll probably take some time one way or another to create a new bullish structure to break out. But
Yeah.
Ren is on like the top of my short list as far as things I want in my portfolio in some more passive way through next year and the year after.
Do you want to know what this reminds me of looking at this? Kind of this structure here, this like really aggressive descending triangle with decreasing volume, reminds me of the 6K break on Bitcoin. Like
Yeah, it
very,
does. And what
it's
happened, right? We got down there, we bounced, and then we bled out for another 4 weeks down to 3,200. And then the W came in right in the reload zone, and that was the long of a lifetime.
yeah,
Dang
exactly.
it.
And that kind of goes with our narrative that once these things do find their bottom, there's going to be such a sharp reversal and they're never going to look back.
That's my vibe. And I think if I had to paint a bullish scenario here as far as altcoins in the shorter term, or even like midterm, whatever, it would be that, you've got the Dixie at the low that you marked earlier, possibly reversing. You've got the Bitcoin probably being the most reactive to that. And if Bitcoin was to drop and kind of hang out between 20K and 23K, ETH BTC is in the long reload zone. Some of these stronger alts are in their long reload. Like, there is a scenario here. So it's not a time to be apathetic and looking away as much as planning and hunting for those signals as early as possible. Because I'm with you, Nick. I think when it does come and it's like, this is it, this is going to happen, I think it'll move pretty fast.
Yeah, and crypto is going to start responding more and more to macro because the market participants, market makers, large holders, etc., they're institutional. So that's their way of thinking. That's how they trade, etc.
Yeah.
There's also going to be probably more frequent repositionings because there's mandates around portfolio allocations or exposure to one asset, etc. It's just a whole new market and it's very sophisticated versus just fucking libertarians, anarchists holding crypto.
Yeah, running their homemade algorithm
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
the baby
So
whales. But what I'm really excited about on that note is what January will bring. Because a lot of major players in the legacy space don't really make their huge plays in December 20th, whatever.
no.
It's a lot of waiting until the January, the new year. You get your books fresh. You're maneuvering your books at the end of the year, kind of tax purposes, blah, blah, blah. Not always tax selling, but whatever. And then it's like you can get that 2 weeks. It's the January barometer, is the first 2 weeks of January, and you can get a real good look at what the outlook is for the year based on the data from that. So I'll be sure to share that on stream, as well as you, I'm sure, looking at that more even. So
Yeah. I got a Litecoin LTC chart. This one looks a lot better than the last LTC chart that we just looked at. Why? Because look at this thing. Like, it is already on the weekly started to create a series of higher lows. So this invalidation of this, is this creating a bottom? The invalidation of that idea in question is closing below 3,900 versus what were we just looking at? It wasn't this one. Oh yeah, Ren BTC versus Ren BTC, where it hasn't yet made that higher low. So it's still in that first knife catching phase, right? Versus here, it's a little bit more progressed. It's been sitting that we saw some pretty high volume come in on here, especially this week. It's pretty interesting. So there's a higher probability. Like, I would much rather be trying to play the long side on LTC, personally. And there's upside targets on this. It's very clear, right? Like, its first stop is going to be up there around like 5.5, and like the real target where you're going to run into some real resistance is going to be around 7,000. But those are huge moves, and LTC, like,
very
historically,
liquid.
yeah, it's liquid, and historically, when we see increases in fees and mempool and Bitcoin slowing down, capital looks for a alternative. And this is, looking here quickly, Litecoin has historically benefited from it. That is my point. So that's the higher. This is, well, yeah. So to finish it off though, because of those reasons, inflow into Litecoin increases, right? We've seen that lots of times. Anyways, this is the fees in Bitcoin. we're at multi-year highs almost. Like Bitcoin's getting expensive again.
I never
And
transfer it, come to think of it. I'm always on Ethereum. So my Bitcoin just kind of sits.
yeah, but I think like right now, this entire rally and liquidity increase has been driven by Bitcoin primarily. So keeping an eye on what's going on that network is going to be a better broad overview of what's actually happening in the ecosystem. Like obviously, yeah, pay attention to your fucking fees you're paying on the ETH network, but this is like the big daddy of to watch. So I do think we're going to be seeing much higher fees, and this is fees played out per block in USD. So I expect this to go significantly higher, obviously, as Bitcoin appreciates, right?
I remember that narrative.
FOMO, this is going to go even crazier.
Yeah, and do you remember that narrative in 2017, right, where it just became so unusable? It was like a 2-hour wait for a $25 fee. And and you're right. And I, even in 2017, as a bit more of a noob, I was like, I'm going to be smart and use Litecoin. But then in market buying and selling Litecoin, actually the slippage paid for the fees anyway. So I've learned since then, but it's true. And that's a really good reminder, because I tend to just kind of glaze over when people talk about Litecoin, because I just don't find it exciting at all. But it is the de facto backup railway for value transfer after.
It has that narrative behind stable coins, which are obviously number one.
I mean, and at the time, Litecoin was much faster than Ethereum. Right now it's slower, but Ethereum is so bloody congested with DeFi that it's not necessarily as an attractive option to anyways.
No.
Let's take a look at XVG. I've got it on my chart. Somebody requested this, and I don't know if it's the same guy who requested it a few streams ago, but when we talked about it on that stream, it was up here, and it was coming in, and I remember thinking, like, this looks really good. Yeah, it made new lows, but it had this nice big breakout. And I was saying, like, I'm going to look at 34, I'm going to look at 33, I'm going to look at 32. And then it popped when Pornhub announced that they weren't going to allow credit cards anymore. So basically the only way to pay for porn, even though I don't know who does that on Pornhub anyways. I've never met somebody who pays for any of that shit, but I guess there's like live cams and whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get into Pornhub, but I will say this. I laughed that day because I came back and looked at the chart. And I was like, fuck, man, the thing hit all three of my bids, which obviously I didn't set because I'm all talk. But this area here that we talked about on that stream ended up being a great buy. Now, for that like tiny trade, it didn't really age too well after that. Now, is it making new lows? No. Does this little one-off pump look a lot like that RVN chart we looked at earlier? Yes. But this didn't really fail as Bitcoin broke to new highs. Internal strength. I would actually be leaning a little bit more bullish on this one. But again, going back to the patience, going back to, where's my weekly W? I just don't see it yet. What we do have is the beginning of one. So let me show you what that might look like here on the weekly. This is now your sort of neckline, right? That nice little candle body high that we put in on that pump. So this is significant volume. It came in. Here's a low. What we need now is a higher low of some kind, and then it break back above that level. You can see here that's a volume node as well on the VPVR. A lot of volume traded there, significant level. So if we trade back above that and close a weekly candle, then we have a weekly W to work with, which is also kind of a reclaim of a key level after making new lows. So all kinds of internal strength there on the old verge. And at that point, I get back into my setting my stinky bids wherever they may be. And yeah, this one in general, I don't know about the use case, blah, 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 but I will tell you this. Verge likes to fly when it flies, and it may be setting up for a weekly W, but that's still weeks away. So let's keep an eye on this one, though, because somebody who watches is into it. They keep bringing it up, and I don't see why not. Everyone likes porn coin.
Everybody. I will pull up cover. It's pretty clean chart, gotta say. Anything below 105, bearish. It'll break the market structure, won't be great. But anything between 105 and above, nice, great daily level. We've only had one tap a daily. Again, we've only been here since November, so there's limited data on the daily. But still, a great structure in general. So this is our first test of are we going to get a higher low? Actually, second test. We had our first higher low here, which flipped this resistance to support, confirming bullish momentum. So right here, if we can see this reload zone here at the spring, again around 1.2 hold, that's going to be confirmation that yes, buyers are in the market, still healthy, and a close above 1.9 will signal a quick move back up to 2.2, above 2.2, and we'll probably go get some more price discovery, stopping at 2.7, the former all-time highs. But yeah, chart looks good. Just need to see that volume come in here. Still, how many hours do we have left in the daily? Like 5 hours? Around just under that. Yeah, it looks good. I like it.
And the case for insurance has never been stronger, with yet another flash loan attack yesterday on Warp Finance. Looks like they may be getting everything back except 28%. Hopefully they have a plan to do with some untouched collateral. So hopefully that works out. I know at least 2 buddies of mine that were involved in that and lost some money. So hopefully they can recover as much as that as possible. And, the case for insurance grows. I thought it was ironic that the founder for Nexus Mutual got hacked the other day. And it wasn't really to do with their protocol as much as just his MetaMask, but like that sucks.
Yeah.
Somebody was tracking his keystrokes, I guess, and God, $8 million. That's no fun. But yeah, the need for insurance has never been higher. Now let's take a look. So Heel asked about the fib extension. I don't know about the March lows. You mentioned the March lows. We draw that. I mean, we're well past that extension. But if you look at the sort of echo rally, a lot of people called it, right? We had the sort of 2017 bubble, then we said we had echo bubble, which interestingly enough was a perfect Gann 50-50 for what it's worth. Ooh, Amber Alert. Oh dear. Hopefully that little child is okay. We're getting an Amber Alert in my area right now. So look, this, Gann 50-50, it was like take back half the rally and half the time. And then I won't do it now, but if you measure the distance time-wise from here to here and then cut it in half, it was like right here. So that whole echo rally, blah, blah, blah. Okay, rambling. Let's get the fib extension from that rally and extend it what you could expect for the next big move up while we're there. And that is further perhaps to the thesis around, Dixie hitting lows at a key level, Bitcoin kind of coming into a key range on the highs. Is that going to be a pivot where it could consolidate here, even roll over and give things like Ethereum and Bitcoin, Ethereum versus Bitcoin and altcoins a chance to catch up? I mean, that's the golden goose. And if this is the final short squeeze or final squeeze on alts before we do that, God, maybe even one more like, oh my God, Bitcoin's never coming down. And then just woo, 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 woo. That would be so sick. And that's what I want to happen. So I'm going to see if I can find confluence on the chart to give me a good reason to follow my trade plan and get a piece of it. But that's what I see. So Hill, we are in a big, dirty fib extension. Now, if you zoom in, we're kind of in another little one. This is actually the one I had on my chart this week after the breakout, just measuring off of here. It's kind of the best you can do, right? Because you can't really look left anymore and find resistance. So you need to use extension tools and trend lines if you want to find levels. There's a lot of Gann stuff, and as you can see here, we're in a fib extension from that. So there's all kinds of reasons why I would expect consolidation here, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now on the 4 hour. Although this just looks so bullish still. There's, the only thing I can say for this on the 4 hour, if I'm dying to find a reason to play the other side of this, is that we did just confirm a little bearish market structure on the 4 hour. One lower high breakdown. So, shorting Bitcoin is less sexy. What I'm really keen on is longing altcoins, longing things that will do well if Bitcoin just chills the fuck out and lets everybody else pay. So keep an eye on this move up here. Obviously, new highs where all bets are off, and we're just going to head there. And alts that are suffering will suffer more versus Bitcoin. But there's something here to be said for even like even imagine like it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. Let me see. Like we just get up into here, and then it's like ooh, and we can just pulling back into here over the period of 4 weeks. That could be an absolute epic altcoin rally. So it's really hard to call in advance. You just got to play level by level. But these are all the things I'm thinking about.
Smart thoughts.
I appreciate that. Mostly just watching this, man. Ethereum, this level on Ethereum, just like Bitcoin's at its highs, Ethereum is not. So Bitcoin chilling out, giving a little bit of room for ETH BTC to breathe. And that's probably going to coincide with some kind of big FU run where the paradigm shifts back to alts and ETH. And that, I mean, I want to say that will happen. It's just a matter of, there's just too much opportunity for gains for people who decide which way the market gets to pivot.
Yeah.
They'll come, but they're going to do it at the last second when you absolutely have convinced yourself it's never going to happen.
Well, with that, I think we should turn to CFI.
Hell yeah. Love CFI. Got a bag.
Yeah. They got a lot of big announcements coming out. Staking's going live in like 6 days. So that's going to be significant. And they automate DeFi. And anybody who does LP farming will know how much of a pain that can be. Up to 7 actions just to execute the function. Huge barrier to entry. So they solve a real problem. Their 2.0 is coming out. The new UI looks sleek. And I think that's the trend in DeFi, right? Everybody's figured out their back ends for the most part, the products. Now it's just building that sexy front end to make it accessible and more easily integrated. But from a TA perspective, this thing just continues to respect levels. Pre-sale price 50 cents. This is the key throwback level. We rallied a bit above that, up to $4.40 the other day. Came back, retested the load up zone 2.6. That's kind of, for me right now, is like the big line in the sand. As long as we're holding above like that 2.6 region, looks pretty good. But right now we are in this range between 2.6 and 3.6. Depending if the most bullish situation, I think we were talking about this before, a possible cup and handle scenario in the play here. It did go a little deeper, but not totally invalidated, I guess. But we are in this range, between these two levels. So depending on how it breaks, your range expansion, say we see something like this, it's consolidating in that, flipping this former left to the right, flipping it back to support. I think we would easily be good to go to take out these highs here. And the big resistance, obviously, $6. So that's what I'll be looking for on the bull side. And if it closes, breaks down here, closing below, closing below here, I would expect these range lows here at $1.50 definitely to be tested. So not a great trade right now, but definitely setting up for some pretty big expansion moves. Those are going to be 75% moves on both sides. So
yeah, I wish we had this on Wednesday, because I was watching that pullback level so hard that you can see it right on your purple line that we just bounced off. That's like an RLZ. It was just a beautiful level. And when we pumped last weekend, I thought, oh, I'm going to wait to buy this. It's a little bit past now, but look, $3.2 million market cap, CyberFi, automating DeFi, still super early. I'm pumped for that one, and I'm not selling my bag right yet.
Nope.
So that's that. Let's take a look at Rook. I have discovered, as it goes, you usually buy a bag and then you go, oh shit, maybe I should find out what this thing actually does. So I did do a little dive onto Rook the other day, and I found some concerning stuff as far as just being a blind hold. And I don't know if I can necessarily rush to pull it up now, but basically they say right in their medium that they want to essentially punish holders, which is fine. I mean, I get it. They want network participation, but they're basically diluting holders' purpose, and they're doing that by rewarding keepers and LPs with freshly minted Rook. So what you see here is the market cap is only 17 mil. But the fully diluted market cap is 75 million. So there's a lot of supply out there that is being kind of farmed, I guess you could say, or rewarded. And so I was a little uncomfortable buying this to hold because it's going to take quite a bit of demand, which we could get, but it's going to take quite a bit of demand to offset, as again, just if I'm choosing to be a holder. So if I can go wrap my head around what it takes to be a keeper and take all the Rook that I want to buy and hold and then go and sort of stake it, so I'm getting some of those rewards, and that's going to maybe offset that risk of inflation, then I'll be a little more eager about this one. For now, it's basically at where I bought the other day. I did sell half when I learned all that new shit on this little rally, because I thought, okay, I should probably just de-risk a bit till I know what the hell I'm doing. And that's one of the things with DeFi you got to understand. A lot of these coins, they are being rewarded to people for free for participating in the network. And so if you're not participating in the network, you're getting diluted. And that changes the dynamic as far as just like a buy and hold strategy. So keep an eye on that on Rook. I would recommend going and doing some reading. It's not so advanced that you can't, I think anyone can wrap their head around it. And I've still got a little more reading to do. This is sort of their medium, a keeper's guide to arbitrage mining Rook. So it's a little more complicated than just buy and hold. And if you do just buy and hold, you could probably still do okay. If the demand comes in and outpaces the supply. But for now, I became less comfortable with this trade, even though on a purely TA kind of viewpoint, this is a sick level. RLZ within an RLZ after a big breakout, buyer volume kind of taking over. So I do still hold some Rook. I'm just not as big on it until I figure out all that other shit.
Looks good. This is probably my last chart, getting to the half-hour mark there.
Yeah, we're getting a little late here. Let's do a quick final. We're going to take a look at eGold. I'll take a look at eGold and
I'll grab MPH here because
MPH.
it's a nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we get that thing in 9 minutes. Okay.
So yeah, we are in a nice consolidation zone here. We got a series of higher lows off the three previous step downs. So that's bullish going for it. No higher highs yet. So again, it's kind of just stuck in this, this range right now. It's a pretty big range between $65 and $26. You're essentially sitting at mid range right now. I don't, unless you're already long off these, below around $30, I wouldn't necessarily want to take this trade. But in terms of range expansion strategy, if it does close above, at $64 again, I think it's going to look pretty good to retest that $90, $85 range on the daily. And if it does close below the daily support range that it's built out around like $26 to $30, I'd probably expect the lower bounds here, $12, $13 to be tested. Again, not a lot of stuff to the left here to work with, but pretty clear range and validation levels and triggers for an expansion move. Beauty.
Quick look here at Tomo. On the weekly, looks really boring, but it is the range lows. So if you just want to get big fat weekly range, it's sitting, where range traders would be like, okay, this is where I do my buying. And up here, obviously we broke out of that, but then we broke back down below this. So that would be sort of on a high time frame, be like, okay, that's where I do my selling and play this range. And then if you lose these lows, all bets are off. We're heading to negative price discovery. Gonna have to take a break.
Yeah.
So that's a quick and dirty on Tomo. I do like the level it's at. You can see I had some ink on this chart, and it's it's kind of sitting in this little reload zone off the confirmed bullish market structure here. So there's a reason to take a shot here against these lows. Based on everything else we talked about, it's still kind of risky. I don't see any evidence of big buys coming in here. In fact, the sell volume is still outpacing the buy volume. So I would give this a soft pass, even though I do love the level. I think with 6,000 coins, I can probably do better. I don't want to spread myself too thin during the crazy Bitcoin bull right now. So let's see. One last one. Sorry, guys. We are going to miss one or two, it looks like. But let's take a quick peek at SNX. Why not? Synthetics. Somebody mentioned this on our Twitter yesterday when I talked about only being invested in top coins. So let's take a look. I mean, certainly showing some strength versus Bitcoin through all this bullshit. Not new lows, not any kind of stuff like that. And if you drew it up off of here, nice big, same kind of thing, right? Where the selling is coming in, but the sell volume is starting to dry up, and then the buyers take over. And aside from this big dirty wick, which was on November 26th, which I believe was the big dump on Bitcoin, aside from that, this thing's like, it's trying to put in a base. It's looking decent, and buying in this reload zone and then having your risks at the lows, that's probably a decent little trade setup for myself. I do like that the buy volume is continuing to come in even as Bitcoin pushes to 23K. That's a really nice internal sign. Can I buy there and risk to here? That's like a 39% drop. So probably not. I'd have to find something tighter. More than likely, I don't see any reason why this needs to break out today. Like, again, right, it's having a decent day, but look at this like tight range it's in. So probably thinking something more like, okay, now I'm interested, or I'm trying to play the range and I'm going to buy it along the lows of the range, trading it up to the highs. So playing tight within, or if you're looking for the big expansion move up, either waiting for that breakout or trying to like sneak in somewhere through this reload zone. Again, losing complete interest in this thing if we break these lows. No need to risk Bitcoin, the world's future reserve currency.
Potentially that's the next narrative for it, really.
Yeah, no, and so Satoshis are so precious. At 3K, you could lose, 0.1 Bitcoin on a trade, and you're like, oh, a couple $100. Like you take a 0.05 Bitcoin loss on something, it's like $1,400 now. I'm like, fuck that. So Satoshis are so expensive, and I hadn't fully recalibrated myself to that fact until I took a 0.04 Bitcoin loss on an altcoin trade the other day, and I was like, fuck this, I'm never risking my Bitcoin again. At least not yet. Very selective right now, but when it shifts, it should shift pretty hard, and I'm going to be there, and we're going to catch it, and we're going to find it, and it's going to be great. So we're back here in the studio as we start to wrap up. Do you have one final thought there on the chart, or should we go? Yeah, we got 3 minutes. Oh my God, E-Gold. Okay, Gold. All I will say about that is it's been rallying like crazy. And so naturally, everyone's talking about it, and from all that talking, they, more and more people come in and they think, is this the real deal? Let's give it an 8-second chart, guys. Let's give it an 8-second chart just because I love you. And this was one I saw earlier that I wanted to mention. Look at this thing. It's doing well. It's doing well versus Bitcoin at a time when Bitcoin is doing well versus the dollar. So yes, there is something here. It's certainly showing strength. It's no longer in the reload zone, but as you can see, trading reload zones, buying into some of this kind of blood can pay off with stronger coins. It's coming up into resistance, which we just noticed, you would have seen yesterday, where we got rejected, and now we're testing it again. This is a risky spot to suddenly be thinking I want to be a big bull on E-Gold, because you've got resistance here, you've got breakdown level here, which even got a bearish retest. So what's your upside target? Well, you're probably going to run into a lot of trouble here. So that's probably your maximum you're going to catch on this first expansion, or whatever you want to call it. So naturally, I will be looking down into this range. If it does come back down, suddenly I can say, hey, that's bullish and I want to buy it. But up at this high here, I feel like the trade has been missed on this particular one. And so I've got to take a little chill pill, and risk, of course, missing out on the next Bitcoin. All right, let's flip back to the studio. I say that jokingly. I don't actually know that Elrond will be the next Bitcoin, of course. Yeah, from an FA perspective, yeah, let's dive into E-Gold on the next one. I think it could be. I mean, it's showing a ton of strength at a time when a lot of altcoins are not, including Ethereum versus Bitcoin. So you've got to ask yourself, why is that? And that always makes me want to look into the FA. So let's do that on the next one. Now, that's it, guys. So it's Friday afternoon. Bitcoin looks bullish. It's flagging after a big breakout on volume. Ethereum, Bitcoin sitting in a potential reversal area. Bitcoin dominance sitting at an incredibly important level. If it keeps moving up from here, all bets are off, probably for a short bit. If it tops here, could see some really nice alt echoing for all the bullishness we've seen on Bitcoin. And that's about it. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And it's great to have you all here today with us. On Monday, I've got a guy coming in. We're going to call him Beat Pelosi. This kid's 19 years old. He's been in crypto for 5 years. He is a DeFi, I would say, prodigy. He's really smart. Anyways, I've been talking about him a little bit all week. I was on a call with him this morning. That show is going to be great. I'm going to force him to leak as much of his alpha as he is willing and able to do. So if you're into DeFi, tune in on Monday, and I will see you then. Until next time, always play from a position of strength. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend, guys.